Hey y'all, happy Sunday. Hope everything is going well for you and yours. This is the portion of the show where we let YouTube send out the notifications via social media, let folks know that the broadcast is getting ready to start. We'll sit here and we'll count down the next 2 minutes before I push that button and go live. If you happen to be watching this on replay, go ahead and scrub past this graphic until you see my smiling face. If you have any questions and you're joining us today in the live chat, feel free to go ahead and add those questions to the live chat now, and we'll get to them in due course during this live Q&A session. So, sit back, relax, grab a beverage, and we'll get going in about 30 seconds. Hey y'all, happy Sunday. Hope everybody's doing well. I said that in the intro, but I've used that intro for so long I forget what's in the intro. Hope everybody, all my US friends, had a great Thanksgiving this past week with Thanksgiving and my oldest granddaughter's birthday and a whole bunch of other stuff going on. I haven't done a thing at all. So it's just been kind of hectic. That's why I call this Chaos Central. In fact, I think I may cut that out and put it on the wall behind me there just to kind of reinforce that fact. There's a bunch of stuff going on behind the scenes. Speaking of which, stuff going on behind the scenes, do stick around to the end because I'm going to make an announcement for next week's live stream that I have a feeling the project is going to knock your socks off. And in fact, so much so, I have invited the creator of the project. I'm going to kind of tease this afternoon at the end here. I've invited him to be my first guest. So more on that a little bit later on, because I figure there's going to be a ton of questions about the project. Best to get the answer straight from the horse's mouth. So, but that'll be a little bit later on. I have to tease it now because, you won't stick around if you don't know to stick around. So let's see. Today, what I wanted to do was kind of go over vector alignment, and more specifically, how to use the vector alignment tools. Because there are a few things in there I don't know that we're using to their full potential. And some folks may not even know these things are there, let alone how to use them. And it's not something that really warrants its own video. So it's a real short refresher on the vector alignment tools to kind of get us back into, oh yeah, I forgot you could do that kind of a thing. Because I do get questions specifically on one of the tools that I don't know that most people use. So rather than beat around the bush with that and try to describe it, I'm going to go ahead and just jump into Aspire from right here, right now. So we'll do that and jump over here. I have just a simple piece out here. I'll get a job set up. So we can see it's 12 inches by 12 inches by 3/4 of an inch thick. And I'll switch over to metric so our metric folks can see the size. 304.8 by 304.8 by 1905. And then jump back over to Imperial. Same basic setup as normal. There's no 3D models, so I'm going to leave my resolution at standard and just go ahead and click OK. Now, the vector alignment tools I'm talking about are on this icon right here under Transform Object. And it goes something like this. Let's say we have let's start with the basics. We all know that if I make a circle out here, for instance, close it, leave it selected, I can come over here and I can align that vector to my material horizontally, vertically, and both. And I do use this a lot. It's one of the reasons why I keep my XY origin in the center of the material when I'm laying things out. Most of my projects are based off the center of the work area of my material. So I can align it horizontally to the center of the material, and I can align it vertically to the center of the material. And it's going to put the center of that vector right on the center point, my XY0. Now, this will work the same way even if I have my XY origin set somewhere else. If I have my XY origin 00 sitting down here on this corner and I use these icons, it will still go to the center of the material. The main reason I leave this centered here is it's easier for me using the coordinate system to figure out where I want to go. It's just, that's the way my brain works. Okay, so this area up in here is aligning vectors to the material itself. Then we'll close that and get out of it. Now, also within the vector alignment, let me move this over here to get it off center just a bit. Also in vector alignment, we have the ability to align one vector to another. And I'll go ahead and I'll create a rectangle here. Go from my X0, Y0. I'm putting the center of that rectangle there, and we'll go for a 6-inch by 6-inch square. We'll create it, close it. Now, even though these are overlapping a little bit, it doesn't matter. Using vector alignment, I can align this circle to this rectangle. And we do that simply by select the circle first, then hold down Shift, select the rectangle last. What I'm doing is I want to align this vector to this vector. So the first one you'll select is the vector you want to align, and the second one you'll select is the vector you want to align it to. Excuse me. The last vector you'll select is the vector you want to align it to. If you had more than one circle, I could select all of those, then just make sure the vector I want to align it to is the last one I select. Now up here, I can center this circle within this rectangle. I can go horizontally, and you noticed it maintained its Y position, and I can go vertically, and that will put it in the center. Control Z to undo that, or I can use this center icon to do both vertical and horizontal at the same time. Now, there are other selections down here that I don't know most of us use, and that is we can align this vector to this vector from the inside. I can hold down Shift to select my rectangle, and I can align the top edge of this circle to the top edge of this rectangle by using this icon right here. Or I can use the right side. Now, because I did top edge and then side edge, it puts it right up here in this corner. Now, you may wonder what the purpose of that is. Well, it makes it very handy to come along and create a radius if you need to create a radius. Now, I'll go ahead and Control Z that, and then Control Z again. I could also align it to the outside edge using these icons down here. And it's the same procedure. I select the vector I want to align, hold down Shift, then select the vector I want to align it to. Then I'll click on the left side here, and it puts that outside edge of this circle right on the outside edge of the rectangle. If we zoom in real close, we can see these vectors overlap right here. It's just a quick, easy way of, I used to sit there and zoom in real tight and drag and drop and everything else in move and transform mode, totally forgetting that these were even here. And it was only, I don't remember which project it was, but it was, well, a year, possibly a year and a half into using the software that I just, wait a minute, why am I doing that? I've got these right here. So it's just a quick, easy way of getting vectors aligned to one another. Now, let me jump over and see if there are any questions here on this so far, and get down here and take a look. I am not seeing any questions. Okay, Rob Schuster says, thanks for showing that. I did not know about the outside edge alignment. Yes, sir. And I'm getting ready to show you something else that's very cool. And in fact, I have been asked about this quite often and totally forgetting that this option was here. And it's such a simple thing, you would think I would learn, but what can I say? So jump back over into Aspire, hide that little thing, and we'll select both of these. We'll delete them. Now, just for giggles, let's say I have a vector out here, and I'm just going to draw a line from here to, and let's try to make it as even as we can from there to there. So I have a 6-inch long vector here. Now I need to put a series of, I want to put a series of circles evenly spaced along this vector. And I could go through and create a bunch of guides and what have you. Let's see, I want to go with 1/2-inch circles. So we'll do 0.5. And I want the first one centered right at the end of this vector. So I'll just create that. And then I want the last one to be centered at the end of that vector, and I'll create that. So I have my first and last placed where I want them. But now I want to add, I want a total of 5 circles in here. So I need to put 3 more in, but I want them evenly spaced along this vector. Now I could come out and drag a bunch of guides and then come along and place those circles, but much, much easier to just click, 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 close. And now what I want to do is I want to align these horizontally then align them vertically. I want them evenly spaced with one another. So I'll select all of those circles, then come down here to alignment. I don't need to select this vector. All I want to do is I want to space these evenly horizontally. So if I come down here to these two, space selection, this icon will space them evenly horizontally. This icon will space them evenly vertically. So I'll come down here and I'll click on this icon, and it leaves the first vector in its position and the last vector in its position, then spaces these three horizontally with an even gap in between them. Now we see that they're not on the line vertically. For that, we don't need to use these vectors down here. Instead, we'll click Shift and we'll center these vertically. Now I have them all in a line, evenly spaced, following this vector. If I don't need that vector anymore, I can just delete it, and there are my 5 evenly spaced circles. So that sounds more complex than it actually is. I don't even actually need that vector. The only reason I needed that line was to place the first and last circle. But if I know down here that I want this circle right here and this circle right here, and I need a total of 6, I can go 1, 2, 3, 4 more. There's a total of 6. Close that. Select all of these. Come back into alignment. Align them horizontally. Then come up here because I have them on my center line. I can align them vertically. Whoops. Control Z. For that, I needed to just select those 4 in the center because it centered the space in between these. Now bring that up, and there we go. I have them all. Now, no, it looks like I'm going to have to do them one at a time because they were gapped differently. Yep, I'll have to do them one at a time. And there we are. So getting an even spacing vertically or horizontally is more or less the same. It's just this one will go vertical and this one will go horizontal. Now, one little, I won't say a word of warning, but just something to know. Let me Control Z out of this and get them back here like so. If I do select them all and attempt to go vertical, what it's going to do is it's going to take the Y position of this one and the Y position of this one, and it's going to arrange them so that they're evenly spaced on a diagonal, like such. It doesn't, it won't center them up, because all it's doing is it's putting an even space between this one and this one, and this one and this one and this one. So they kind of fall on a jagged diagonal. That's not what we want to do. We want to space them evenly out here, deselect, select all of these, and bring them up like so. Well, that one didn't do it. There we go. So I hope that didn't confuse you. Now let me delete these here and show you one more option that we have. Let's say we have a rectangle here, for instance, and I'll go ahead and I'll align that to the center horizontally. just so that it's in the middle. There we go. And let's say I have a bunch of circles in here. So let's go ahead and create those. And there we are. But now I want them evenly spaced inside this rectangle. I can select all of these. I'll go into my alignment tools again. With all of my circles selected, hold down Shift, then select the rectangle, and then put a check mark right here, inside last vector. Then I'll click on this icon, and it evenly spaces horizontally here to here, and then from the center here to the center here, from the center here to the center here. And then I can vertically align the objects to the last item, and I have my circles centered within my rectangle, evenly spaced. So inside the last vector will align them either horizontally or vertically to the last vector I select. It's just, I've been asked repeatedly about getting an even spacing, and I myself have been using guidelines to do that, totally forgetting that space selection was even a part of the program. So if you need even spacing, basically get your first vector, oops, wrong, 0.5 and 0.5. Get your first vector set in position, your last vector set in position, then you can just come along and fill in however many you need, close, then select all of them, and there's your even spacing. And then go through and align vertically however you want them placed. So, and that's how that works. That even spacing is very handy. So let me get out of here and come back over to y'all and see what we've got going on. Let's see. Let me see. A lot of talking about electronics and what have you. Let's see. Okay, so let's cruise on up here and see if we have any questions on what I've just been talking about. Let's sorry for the dead air. Lots of questions about electronics, UC100s, and what have you. And you guys are speaking way over my head because I've not used Linux CNC or any of that, or UC100s. I've never used any of that. Okay, let's see. Poppy's Woodshed says, are there any overlaps when you do the vector validator? Now, I'm not certain that you are talking to me on that. But if you align something to the, for instance, the demonstration I had, let's go down here and we'll share again rather than try to describe it. Let me get rid of all of these here. delete, and we'll go for the rectangle, let's say out here, close, and center that up. Also, there is a shortcut for centering. I have my vector here. I want to put it in the center. I just tap the F9 key. Whoops. I can't tap the F9 key with this laptop. It shuts off my monitor. But normally you tap the F9 key and it will center it up. So, okay. And then I have another, let's make another smaller rectangle here and close that. So from what I gather, the question is if I select this one, hold down shift, select this one, and then nudge that to the inside edge. If I use the vector validator, will there be an overlap here? Yes, there will. So two ways of getting around that. If you are, well, in fact, let's go ahead and run the vector validator and search selected. I have two intersections and an overlap. Those two intersections are the nodes here and here, and then the overlap is this entire span right here. There are a couple of ways around this. If you need this vector to be a complete square, and you need this vector to be a complete rectangle, you can put them on separate layers. So I would select this, right click, move to layer, new layer. We'll just call this layer 2. And I'll change the color so that I'm aware that it's a different vector. I'll make it red. Click OK. And now I know this layer, this vector is on its own layer up here. And this vector is on its own layer down here. Now, if I am looking to, let me go ahead and Control Z to undo that. And we'll select them both. Vector validator again, search selected. I have my my overlap and my two intersections. Close. If I don't need this to be a complete vector, or if I'm looking to use this as a notch, for instance, for finger joint or something like that, I'll just come along and snip, snip. Oops. Let me go in here. Nope, it's not going to do it. Close. Okay. Select the vector, tap in to go into node editing, put my cursor over here, delete span. So I now have a horseshoe, basically. Then come along and snip that away. So using the vector validator, yes, you will have intersections, and yes, you will have an overlap. And it would be the same if I used a circle here. But for instance, if let's go with 0.5, and I'll come over here and create a circle, close it, select this, shift, select this, and I put it to the inside there, close. It's more or less the same thing. I'll zoom in here to where they overlap, select this one, go into node editing, and I'll put a point right here and a point right here. Then delete point and delete span. Tap in to come out of node editing. I say tap in to come out of node editing. Trim it away. Whoops, trim too much. Oh, yes, you will have intersections. Yes, you will have overlaps, but then you have to go in and clean those up. So let me get out of there and come back to y'all so I can see what's going on. Benjamin Schuer says you can also use array copy to center. Yes, sir, you certainly can. You certainly can. There are many, many ways of accomplishing the same thing. So it's basically your choice and whatever you're most comfortable with. It's just like some people like to use keyboard shortcuts. Other people don't like to use keyboard shortcuts. It's 100% up to you. So, let's see. Brooks Martin wants to know, do I have to group my vectors before centering multiple vectors to a vector? Sometimes. Now, I've been trying to get it to, I've been trying to purposely do it to demonstrate what can sometimes happen, and it won't do it for some reason. It only does it every so often. And that is if I have, for instance, 6 or 7 circles scattered out in an area, and I want to center that collection of vectors. If I just go into my alignment tools and I click center to material, it takes every individual circle and puts it over the center. So I just have my 6 or 7 circles right in the middle of my material, which is not what I want. If you want to, if that happens, Control Z, group them. Then when you align them, it'll align the entire group. So the answer is sometimes yes, sometimes no. You know, and I have not yet found any one situation where it does happen and where it doesn't happen. You know? So, but yes. Russell Faraday says, I use a line tool for STL objects a lot. Works perfectly. Yes, it does. This will work with 2D vectors, 3D objects. So whatever you have selected. Okay, let's see. Why not set the align tool to the main menu page? You can do that very simply. I just haven't done it. I find it gets in the way personally, but let me show you what Dave is talking about here. When you go into the vector alignment tools, you come down here and there's a check mark, show the common tools on the drawing tab. So we'll check that, click close, and now if you look, align objects is right here. It adds that extra toolbox, I guess you would say, to the menu. So, and you have the most common one here, align left to the last selected objects, align right, top, bottom. This is align to material. This is aligned to vector. And this is inside edge. This is outside edge. To get to spacing, you'll still have to come down here. But it takes the most common alignment tools and puts them out here on the menu. And again, that's found just by putting a check mark here, then clicking close. Conversely, you can uncheck that, click close, and that section is gone. So it's completely and entirely up to you. If you use it a lot or you just want to remind yourself that those tools are there, just check mark that box and close it, and there they are. So thank you for bringing that up, Dave. I thank you. Okay. Marco Golek, how to place an exact position inside a circle like holes. Well, I've talked about that in vector creation, but let me go back and check that. Back to sharing here, and we'll get rid of that, and we'll delete it. Okay, so let me draw a bigger circle here. We'll make a 6-inch diameter, and we'll click that. There we go. And you want to place a hole in an exact location within the circle. So what I'll do is I'll just draw the smaller hole. Let's say it's 1-inch diameter, and I'll create it. Close. Now I want to place this in an exact position. I can do it a couple of ways. First, I can go to move selected objects here. I want to move based on the center of the circle, and I want to put it in absolute coordinates. Right now, it's sitting at 0.5828 in X, and the Y position is 0 because it's sitting right on the my Y0 line here. But let's say I want to put it over here somewhere. I'll put it at my Y position. I want 1.0, and my X position, I want to be negative 1.0. Click apply, and it puts it right there to where it's 1 inch to this side of my X0 and 1 inch above my Y0. Now, you can do this again, absolute. That's going to put it exactly on the coordinate you choose. If you don't want that movement to be absolute, you want it to be relative. So, for instance, if I want this to move 2 inches over in the positive direction in X, I would click relative and go 2.0, but I don't want it to move at all in Y. It's where I want it in Y. I'll just leave my Y position at 0. And it's going to move relative to where it is now. I'll click apply, and it jumps over the 2 inches. So that's how you can place an object precisely within another object. It's not so much to do with this object as it is to do with the position of the center of the object. Okay? I hope that makes sense. So, someone else was asking, I saw the question a second ago about drawing a line. Let me get rid of these two here. Delete. Drawing a line from the center. Let's say I want to go from the center and I want to draw out 4 inches. What I would do is, again, I talked about this, I believe it was last week. In this form, I need a start point. If I know here where my start point is, for instance, I want it to be at X and Y0. I'll go ahead to X and Y0 and I'll just click. And there's my start point for my line. Now I want it to be 4 inches over. I want it to go 4 inches over at a 0 degree angle. For my next point, I'll go in X 0, or excuse me, no, that's wrong. Backspace. I want it to go 4 inches over in X. So 4 inches positive in X and 0 in Y because I want it to be on this line. So there's my next point. My X measurement is 4.0. My Y measurement is 4.0. And I'll click add. And that puts a point right there. And that makes that line 4 inches long. Let me Control Z to undo that. Nope. Let me close it and delete. Okay. Here we go. If I wanted, for instance, an angle, here's my center point, but I want this to start 1 inch over and 1 inch down. So I'm moving negative and negative. I want to make my first point -1. Nope, wait a minute. Yes, -1.0 and -1.0. And I click add, my line will start right here. Now I want to make a 6-inch line in a 45-degree angle. What I'll do is I'll come down here for my next point, 45, and the length, 6. 45-degree angle, 6 inches long. From that point, click add, and there is my line. Spacebar to accept that line. So that's how to accurately place lines of a specific length in a specific location with a specific angle. Also, I can just start a line here and use my guides, my snapping, to kind of see where I'm going. If I want to now make this 6 inches long at a 0-degree angle, I'll come over here and say 0, 6, it's already there, add, and there we are. Spacebar to accept that line. So you can either use exact coordinate locations, or you can use an angle and a length. dx and dy are coordinates relative to the starting point. For instance, I'll click here and I want to go 1 inch over here and 1 inch down here. I'll go 1.0 and 1.0, add, and there they are. Well, I should have been negative, but you get my point. It made a line, it entered the next point 1 inch over and 1 inch up. So it's using these here. These are absolute coordinates based on your x0, y0, and these are relative coordinates based on the start point or the last point. So I hope that answered those 2 questions. And now I'll get back over. There we go. Okay. And let's see, that was, who was that? That was Chris Knorr. Can you set a guideline to a specific X or Y value? Say I need a rule running X at Y from 0. Is there a way to do this? Can you set a guideline? Yes, you can set a guideline to a specific value. Again, let's see, we're about 45 in. Come back over here. You can set a guideline, but basically what you need to do is you need to drag a guide out there so you can get into the properties by right-clicking. Okay, your current position, it is a vertical guide, a guide that runs vertical. So your new position is going to be, right now it's sitting currently at negative 2.1 from 0. If I want this to be negative 1, I'll select all that in there and go negative 1.0, click apply, and my guide is moved over to 1.0. Okay? And there we are. And the same thing holds true with vertical. If I want this intersection where these two intersect, if I want that down in here, I'll right click the guide, see where it is, and it's at 3.9 on the positive side. Well, I want it at 1 on the positive side, 1.0, click apply, and that guide moves down there. So that intersection is 1 inch above and 1 inch to the left of 0. So guidelines work in much the same way. So then I'll shut off my guides here and come back over to y'all. I hope that answered that question. So let's see. IL Peleg, any reason to use 1.0, i.e. the decimal point in 0, when using the create line polyline? Will it not accept a simple 1? Yes, it will. And if you paid very careful attention, I did that on a couple of times. I used 6 and 1. But my main reason for including the decimal is because that's what I said, so that's what I typed. And it's just for purposes of demonstration. But yes, you don't necessarily, if you don't have anything to the right of the decimal point, you don't need to enter the decimal point. It will assume you mean whole numbers. So, okay, let's see here. Still a lot of talk about okay, the Fuzz wants to know, any luck discussing overlapping vectors with Shane yet? Not yet, and that's mainly because he's very busy. I've been very busy. We just haven't connected yet. In fact, I haven't even attempted to reach out to him yet, simply because I've been so busy. I can't take the time to sit down. So, let's see. John Thompson, I forgot to ask you yesterday. I helped John with some 3D stuff. Do you save each toolpath separately in rest machining or save them all in one? Personally, I save separate pieces of G code. Most folks want to put it all in one piece of G code, and that's fine. Whatever works for you. Personally, I use separate pieces of G code, and I always have, mainly because that way I can take a break whenever I want to. I know that I finished, for instance, my roughing toolpath with my 1/4 inch end mill. I can shut everything down, go in the house, have dinner, and hit the rack and come back the next morning, rehome, reset my XY, load my next piece of G code, and take off from there. I'm not writing down line numbers and playing with that. Personally, I prefer to do it that way. Your mileage may vary. If you want to save it as one piece of G code, go for it. You know, that's one of those either or. It doesn't really matter. It's your choice. So, let's see. Let me go here. How about drawing a 2 inch by 4 inch rectangle with the arch at the midpoint with a 2 inch rise? Sounds to me like you want me to design your project. Troy, about all I can say is get in and experiment. Just get in and experiment with it. Draw your arc, and you can set, start point and end point of that arc and get your height correctly. Then align that arc inside the material. And you may have to draw guides to get you that specific distance, or you may go ahead and use the move function, like I just showed a second ago, to put it exactly where you want it to go. But, experiment with it. That's half of getting it down personally. But no, I know you don't want me to design your project. I'm just playing with you here. Sorry about the sidebar conversations. Don't worry about it. That's part of the fun of doing this, is you guys having these sidebar conversations. And that's why I don't that's why I don't engage, because I don't know. I'll get to you in just a second there, David. Um, quick, get off of that. Because you guys are going to hook up with one another. I mean, and this is not about me. This is about you. So if you have a question and I don't know the answer to it, by hooking up with somebody who does know the answer to it, you guys can get together on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. I mean, I know Vectric. I know YouTube won't allow you to share email addresses and won't allow you to post links or what have you. Excuse me. But the point is, you can now search for one another, and hook up that way, and make connections in that direction. You know what I mean? So this isn't about me. This is about you guys. So if I have if I have a question, and I will soon, when it comes to pass, if I have a question about hooking up a spindle to Mach 3 to get Mach 3 to control it, I'm going to be going to you folks to ask you about that, because I've never done it. Now, I do kind of have an advantage in that I can ask you guys here in the chat. But if, for instance, we had Ayal talking with Brooks and a few other people about using, for instance, UC 100s, and are you happy with that, and all the other good stuff. Those two can get together on social media, exchange email addresses, and go for the gusto that way. So, I don't have any issue at all with side conversations. I mean, go for it. I'm looking for your question right now, David. And it must have been pretty far back up, because I am still looking. There we go. Okay, I've been trying to line up pieces that you designed for your DXF presentation. I just can't consistently get the pieces lined up. Do I have some options not set correctly in Smart Snapping? Which DXF presentation was that? Was that the letter tiles, the Scrabble tiles, or was that the Spiral Tornado, or which one? If I can't consistently get the pieces lined up. Do know that the different letters and number combinations have a slight spacing difference. Simply because, like, an O on a letter tile is a different size than the I. So they're going to be spaced a little bit different relative to the outside edge, and the little number off to the side, a 3, a 5, or what have you, is going to be different from a 1 or a 4 or something like that. So trying to line up pieces, if you're talking about outside edges as well, if so long as you have Smart Snapping turned on, and again, let me screen share here. I'll just do it with some regular rectangles here. If you're using a rectangle here and a rectangle here, for example, and I want to align this corner of this rectangle with this corner of this rectangle, first thing to do is make sure you have smart snapping and geometry snapping turned on. If they're blue, they're turned on. If they're white, they're turned off. Okay? So what I'll do is I'll grab this to put it into move and transform mode. I'll zoom in a little bit and I will grab it by that corner. Click, drag it over to that corner, and we see how it kind of wakes up that node, and you see how that line forms right there, that little guide. That lets me know that I'm staying on that same Y coordinate as this corner here. Okay. So again, let's do that. Close. And when to move and transform mode, then again, I'll grab this corner, move it up here to kind of wake that node up, drag it back down into its original position. You see how that intersection formed there? Now, when I let go, it is in its original position in Y, but in X, I have scooted it over so that this corner lines up with this corner. Does that help you at all? I mean, again, it's waking up that node. It's letting the software know what you're trying to snap to. Does that help at all? Let's get down here. It's the boxes. Okay, did that help you at all, David? Let's see. Let's see. I will get to you, Troy. I was playing with you. Basically, okay, Roger. Really wish you had answered showed toy how to rather than talk about sidebars. Hey, well, all right, I'll do it. Basically, I have showed it to you. It's just, I'm trying to cruise up here. Okay, here we go. How about a 2 by 24 inch rectangle with an arc midpoint with a 2-inch rise? Okay, let's back off of here. And I'm going to have to change my job setup because I don't have 24 inches, obviously. Let's go for 26. And again, IL, no decimal point, no zero. And click OK. So I have a 2-inch by 24 inch. Width in X will be 24. Height in Y will be 2. And I'll put that in the center just for giggles. And create. Okay, so there's my 2 by 24 inch rectangle. Now you wanted an arc with a 2-inch rise. Okay. Start point, I'll put right here. And we're going to go through 3 points. My start point, I'll just put it right here. Okay. My end point, let's see, I want to go, no, let's do this. Close. Let's do this exactly the way you wanted. So pardon the background for just a second here. Arch at midpoint with a 2-inch rise. Okay. Then we won't go a midpoint. We'll go with center. So we want the center at the midpoint. Okay. Now I want you want to set a radius or set a height rather of 2 inches. Okay. Create. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Okay. I want the center to be well, if I'm going to go with a 2 inch, it's 2 inches tall. So I'll go for the center to be right there. And we'll go 2 inches. Set radius at 2.0. Create. You didn't do it. All right. Well, I normally don't like to use center, start, and end anyway. I prefer to use 3 points. So we want the start point to be in X -3 because you wanted it 6 inches long, I believe. -3. We want the end point to be +3 and the radius to be 2 inches. 2.0. Apply. Okay, so you have 2 inches. Oh, radius should have been 1 inch. Control Z. Radius, not diameter, Mark. Okay, arc, -3, radius of set height, excuse me. You wanted to be 2. So that would be, yeah, the set height would be 2.0, not the radius. Apply. Now, why did you go -3? Wow. Wow. I'm going to have to get back on to you about this, or get back to you on this, because I have no idea why this is doing this. Normally, I can set my center point and enter a height and a length, and it will draw it just fine. Okay. Well, let me see. Let me draw an arc here, and let's make it, and then drag up. Okay, yes, it's just giving me a radius. It's not letting me drag up a certain amount. Wow. Okay. I'm going to have to dig into it and see, do I have something set up weirdly or what? This is odd. Okay, well, let me get out of this. I am not showing my screen. Oh, man. Yeah, but I wasn't sharing my screen. I'm sorry. I apologize for that, y'all. That was stupid. Yeah, I apologize for that. For some reason, I could not get it to work. I don't understand. I'm going to have to get in and see if there was an issue I was having. Usually, I can go in with the 3 points and put the center point in position, then come down and get the start and end points, click apply, and it's not doing anything. Of course, now it could be this old nasty laptop too. I don't know. Good grief. We've been on for an hour and 5 minutes. I know that I said I needed to tease something, and I will tease something. Alan, I'm a non-drinker, so I don't even have that excuse to fall back on. Anyway, let me know. So it's not absolutely, Troy. It's not just you. That's the whole point. It's not just you. Let me get her figured out, and maybe I'll throw that in next week. Speaking of next week, Michael Keymont, you couldn't be any further from the truth. I have okay. Back up, regroup. Totally lost my train of thought. Not while it's standing in the station. There we go. I've known a fella by the name of Rob Schuster for a long time, and I brought him up several times on this broadcast because he makes some absolutely awesome projects. He does some fantastic stuff. He not only makes the projects, He actually made the machine that made making the project possible. Now you're wondering, what the heck are you talking about? Well, let me just show you the project in question. Rob makes drums. Rob doesn't just make drums. Rob makes awesome drums. This is a shell he created just recently. And as you can see, it is made of different species of wood. This is what they call toasted oak, and this is birch. He cut out all of these pieces, glued it all together, then put it on his rotary machine, trued everything up, then did his epoxy inlay, and finished it as you see here. Not only is this an awesome project, but it's an awesome process too. So I have asked Rob if he would be my first guest on the live Q&A next Sunday, and we've confirmed today. So next Sunday, Rob Schuster will be on to answer your questions about that drum, about his drum machine, and about life, the universe, and everything. Now, to tease this one step further, Rob put out a video on his YouTube channel that showed how he did this drum and how he made that drum shell. There's a link to that video down in the description box of this video. It's killer. You will pick up more tips and tricks watching that video than I would have ever considered. He does show his machine, a little bit of it, but if you explore his channel, go back a little further, you'll see the machine that allows him to put basically that ring around the gantry and carve the inside of that drum ring. I mean, it's brilliant. It's awesome. It's more than I could even describe. But his process of cutting out individual puzzle pieces and then putting them all together is something to be seen. So again, link to that video is down in the description of this video. Go over there and check it out. And next week, next Sunday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, Rob will be here with me live to answer your questions on the drum, the machine, life, the universe, and everything. And Russell, you more than others should know that the answer is 42. So join me next week. We'll have Rob Schuster on as the first guest. And, oh yeah, you must do the chat next week. And he'll be here to answer your questions. And I'll just kind of sit back and feed him as you type them. And I'll probably be able to get to them all. This is just me talking here. I'm going to say, let me work on it, Troy. Michael Keymont has the right idea. I don't know why I didn't jump into that, but you're absolutely right. I'll probably do that, and I'll throw it in a little bit more. So, and score yourself 5 bonus points. Okay. So Rob Schuster and I will see you here next week. That will be the topic. And until then, Michael Mazalik does not have a video again this week. He will be going back to his schedule in January. And so let's get out and make some chips. In my case, let's get out and clean up this mess. That background is unacceptable. Wrong way. Except for my dust collector cart. Woohoo! So y'all take care. Have a good one. See you next week. And have a safe week.